Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm playing around with my latest collection of stencils just released over at StencilGirlProducts.com. Now, in this video, I'm going to share with you a couple of techniques you can use with these stencils, and hint, you can use them with any stencils. And also, too, you're going to see how I've used this in my art journal for collage papers, and also, too, in gel prints. You're going to find out what my big thing is for me about words and why I love stencils with words on them. And well, I've got there's a no-fail technique to get perfect positioning of things. I've got a bunch of stuff for you here in this video, so enough of me talking about it. Let's dive on in and get started playing. This stencil is called We Carry Each Other, and it's basically crowds of people. And it's inspired by the invisible ways that we hold space for each other and how much lighter the weight of the world can be when you've got people that are sharing it with you, when you've got people that are helping you carry that load. And when you're using the stencil, you can stencil one person, all the people, completely up to you, pick a couple. Here what I'm doing is stenciling 3 people from head to toe. Now, that's one way you can do them, but with this stencil, I especially love only stenciling part of it. So I'm going to stencil normally from the head down to about the waist. And then around when the legs start, I'm going to stencil lighter, meaning I'm just not going to use much pressure. I'm just going to put less paint down there, and I'm not going to go all the way down to the toes. I'm just going to let people kind of fade away. Well, I mean, not the whole person, just their feet and part of their legs. But you can see the difference in the kind of look that it creates whether you do the whole stencil or part of it. And that is one of the things I really appreciate about stencils, is because one stencil can give you so many different looks. You can do it exactly as it is, as well as pick and choose just parts of it to use. Now I'm going to continue repeating this around here until I've put a variety of people all around this background. And I found this stencil really handy for a colorful background that's very busy, to start getting some shapes, start getting some things to develop on it. One of the advantages of having a row of people like this is you can pick and choose which people you're going to use. You can use the entire row, and that gives you one look, or you can pick and choose a few people from it so that that one row of people can actually end up looking like a whole lot more. The other thing is some are taller, some are shorter. So if I'm going to do something that's going to be a little bit more in the background, I'm going to use some of the shorter people so it makes it look like they're a little bit farther away. So I'm going to create some depth with that. But of course, this is art, this is play. It doesn't mean you have to follow any kind of rules. So if you want to put some shorter people in the front along with some taller people, guess what? You absolutely can. Another advantage to stencils is that you can flip them over. So here I've been working on that side of stencil. Now I'm going to flip it. And I'm very strategically flipping it over, because now the people that I stencil, they're going to be facing the opposite direction of the ones that I did in the beginning. And so it just adds a little more variety into the crowd using the exact same stencil. Now that I've got a bunch of people on here, I'm really happy with how this layer has come together. But this is by no means finished. There definitely want to put some more stuff on here. And so a little bit later in the video, I'm going to share with you what I put onto this next, and you'll see what it looks like in a finished art journal page. But before we get to that, I want to show you another technique using the stencil. Now this one is a quick and easy technique that just uses one color of paint. Well, I guess technically maybe 2, because it's whatever color you want plus white. So I used brilliant blue here, and I mixed a bunch of white with a little bit of it to create the lightest color that I'm doing right now. And then it's just a matter of simply stenciling right through it. What I'm using to stencil here is a good old cosmetic sponge from the drugstore, nothing fancy. And as my palette there, and by the way, you can use anything, I happen to just be using a 3x5 gel plate, personal preference. Now, before I go to the next step, I'm going to look at the stencil and see if I feel like it has a bunch of blue paint on it that's wet. If it is, I'm actually going to wipe some of that wet blue paint off. If it feels pretty dry to me, then I'm just going to flip it over as it is, and I'm going to position the stencil again. Now, the reason why I'm flipping it over is because it'll make the people look like they're looking, well, we'll make them look in the other direction, and that'll create some variety in between the rows. Could you possibly do it where they're going the same direction? Oh, absolutely. It's completely personal preference on this. And now for the second row, which I have it overlapping the first a little bit, then I'm just going to come in with my middle color, the one that's a little bit darker, and I am going to stencil strew. Boy, am I tongue-tied today. I'm going to stencil through this just like I did the last row. Now, once I lift this one off, I've got a bunch of that blue paint around it. So I am going to take a towel of cloth and I'm just going to kind of wipe the stencil off just a little bit so that when I flip it over, it's not going to transfer any of that paint that's on the stencil back onto the paper. Now, as I'm positioning this, notice that I slid it over a little bit. I can pick and choose which of the people that I want to use, and that just creates a more varied look to it when I'm finished. Then I do that entire row in my darkest color, and this is what it looks like at the end. And you bet you can do that with as many tints, shades of a color as you want. All right, so here's an idea of what you can do with this stencil on the gel plate. And as you're looking at these, do you prefer the ones that are the full length where you can see them all the way from the heads to the toes, or do you like them more when they fade out and you can just see parts of the people? Most of the time when I'm designing a collection of stencils, there's going to be a word stencil in there. And in this collection, there are actually 3 of them. And there are 3 big reasons why I love to create word stencils and I love to use them in whatever I'm creating. One is you've got those words just as they are. It's a great way to add a title. It's a great way to put some meaning in things. Another thing is to use those same letters actually as more of a shape, as a design element. Not really a word that's meant to be read, but simply an element to add in there. And then the third reason, well, I'll share that with you in just a moment. But let's dive in and start playing around with the words as a design element. This stencil is called Rebellious Acts, and when you've got a stencil with a bunch of words like this on it, you can use them in sentences or phrases as they are, or you can cherry pick, choose which ones you want to use for what you're doing. So here I've put the words unbreakable, resilience, and freedom, just stenciled them straight exactly as they are. But all of these words, they can become a design element. This is one of the most forgiving things to do with a stencil because as I'm pouncing around here, I'm just getting parts of things. I'm not trying to get a whole word. There's no pressure to get it all right. As I'm doing this, I am using a light touch with the sponge, and that helps create more variation because the words, the letters aren't going to come through completely. So it's going to add to that ghost look to it. So if you happen to have any busy backgrounds and you're wondering what else you can add to them, how can you develop another layer on them, this is one of the ways. For this paper, I decided to use it as a background on an art journal page. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue part of it down here into my journal. Now the journal that I'm using here is one of my cardboard journals, and I love to play with those things. If you've taken my free workshop, Permission to Play, you know how much I love playing on cardboard. And if you haven't taken that workshop yet, or if you haven't taken the latest iteration of it, Embracing Freedom, I've got a link down below so you can get signed up and join in that free fun. It's a 5-day workshop all about play, letting go, and having a good time with your art supplies. When you're using words on a page or in anything you're doing, they can also be the focal point or the title. And so for this one, I have got the perfect thing that I want to put up there. The stencil that I'm using is called Own Your Story. And I created this as a reminder that all of her journeys with its twists, its triumphs, the scars, is worthy of respect, not apologies. And so some of the sentences that are on here is, "You will not determine my story, I will. There is nothing stronger than a broken woman who has rebuilt herself. I am just getting started. And yes, I can decide for myself." And there are some other things on that stencil, and you can check them all out over at StencilGirlProducts.com. Now, I've shared with you 2 reasons why I love to use words in what I'm doing, but the third one is the biggest reason for me, my go-to reason to put words into what I'm doing. Now, before I share that with you, I need to get some of the words ready. So what I'm doing right here is just stenciling with white paint onto tissue paper. This happens to be colored tissue paper, but you could use any color of paint on white tissue paper or any variation thereof. This is one of those things that I do when I want to create something, but I don't feel creative. When I've had one of those days where it just feels a bit overwhelming, but I know if I get some art supplies in my hands, I'll start to feel better. It'll make my day better. And so something like this is a low thought kind of thing. And I'm just repeating it, and I'll do it on a whole bunch of colors. I'll just make a whole big batch of tissue papered words. This stencil that I'm using here, this one's called Bold and Brazen. And this one came out of all the times when I've either been told to bite my tongue or I felt like I should bite my tongue, but I really didn't want to. So a bit of sarcasm, a bit of snark in this one. and maybe even a bit of attitude as well. So some of the things that are on here is, hey train wreck, this isn't your station. Or your lack of planning is not my emergency. Not all who wander are lost, but I wish some were. 0 stars, do not recommend. You have deprived a village somewhere of its idiot. The last time I saw something like you, I flushed. Zombies eat brains, so you're safe. And did the middle of my sentence interrupt the beginning of yours? And when you've got words on tissue paper, they're easy to cut apart to use in an art journal, a collage, and whatever it is you're creating. And I'm going to go for it in an art journal here. Now I'm taking these words and I'm cutting the phrases apart. And I've done this, as you'll see, on a whole bunch of different colors of tissue paper. I'm using a very fluid glue and I'm just gluing them down quickly. Not precisely, not making anything perfect, because this is a background. And I know that the background will be covered up over time. But here's the thing. The words that I'm putting down here, that is infusing this page with the feelings, the meanings that I want it to have. So because I'm choosing these words, I think you've got an idea of the kind of day that I was having and the way I was feeling about a situation. And so I'm just getting it into my art journal page. This is why I love to create and use word stencils, because there's so many different vibes and feelings that can be infused into the pages. And if I had used, say, the Own Your Story stencil, completely different vibe to this page than with Bold and Brazen. I will link down below in the description all of the supplies that I'm using here in this video. And the glue that I'm using here, it's fluid matte medium, but guess what? You don't have to use that glue. What's important with tissue paper is whatever glue you're using is a fluid glue, something that really flows easily to make it easy to glue that tissue paper on. The last stencil in this collection is a tribute to the women who have shaped who we are. So the ones that have come before us, the great-great-grandmothers, and the ones that are beside us right now, the mothers, the daughters, the friends, the mentors, and the impact they've had on who we are as people. And that's why I named this stencil Before Us, Beside Us, and Within Us. Now, not only do you get the stencil, but you also get all 6 of the masks. So you'll get 6 of these. So you have both the stencil and the mask to play with. And that gives you a whole lot of freedom, because having both of these, well, rather than me talk about it, let me show you how those two play together. So I've got the scrap of colorful paper and I'm taking the stencil and moving it around to see if I like the placement of that silhouette there, if I like the way the colors play inside of it. And there's a lot of freedom in being able to twist and turn and move things to see if it's right before you bring in any paint. So it takes all the guesswork out of it so you can get some of those really wonderful little nuances just the way you want it. Now, once I've got the stencil there, that's going to act as the guide for where I'm going to place the mask. And in order to get the mask to stay, I'm going to use a very fancy tool called a piece of tape. This happens to be washi tape. I'm folding into that circle, you know how I used to do in kindergarten for tape, and I'm going to attach it to the back of the mask. Now, once I've got it in its position, I'm going to hold it with my finger and then lift up the stencil. Now I've got the mask placed exactly where I want it to be. That little bit of tape is just holding it in place. And now it's time to just bring in the paint and go all the way around it. If you happen to have little wonderful scraps of stuff around and you've been wondering how you might use them, putting a mask on top of them and highlighting part of that pattern and design, well, it gives it a whole new life. Once I've pulled that mask off, then I simply trim it up and it's ready to be used in a collage, in an art journal page, as a card, anything that I want to create. Now, in this case, I happen to have used it in an art journal page. And she became a very colorful silhouette here, giving off the vibe of an old-fashioned cameo to me. And those words, well, those came from the Own Your Story stencil. Not only can you do this on paper, you can do it on fabric as well. So the fabric that I've got here, this was created by eBond, and I'm going to use the stencil to find exactly where I want to position it to get the color and pattern that I want that goes with the vibe of the shape that I've got here, the silhouette of this woman. And it is always amazing to me what a difference it makes when you get just the right things inside the silhouette. Now I know exactly where I want that mask to go, so I'm going to take a piece of tape, that little tape circle thing, and I'm going to stick it on the back side, position that mask right where I want it to go, hold it down, and lift away the stencil. And I love that there's no guessing with this. I know exactly where I want it to be, and I know exactly what's going to be inside that silhouette when I lift the mask away. So I'm going to cut this fabric out, and then I'm going to bring in the paint. The paint that I'm using is just a regular acrylic paint. And the reason why I'm doing that is because this is going to be going into an art journal. Since I'm not going to wash it, I'm not going to put it in the laundry, I don't have to worry about whether it's the right kind of paint to use. Any acrylic paint will work if you're using it in something like an art journal, a card, a collage, that kind of thing. Now, if this is something that I wanted to be able to put through the laundry, well, then I might use a different paint, a fabric paint. But the technique is the same, whatever kind of paint that you're using. And when you're done adding the paint, simply remove the mask. Now, this became a part of this art journal page. I did some free motion sewing of a quote by Alice Walker that I love. And then I chose some words off of the Rebellious Act stencil to add up there as the title with rebellious strength. What I've shared with you here in this video are just some of the ways that you can play with stencils. And you betcha this is just the beginning. I am just getting started. Now, the most exciting thing for me when I design new stencils is seeing how other people play with them. I cannot wait to see what you create using these stencils. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, if you know somebody that you think would enjoy this fun, then share the play with them so they can join in too. And if you'd like to know more about stencils or where you can get the stencils used in this video, you can find everything over at StencilGirlProducts.com. Oh, and of course, if you want to see more ways to stencil, I've got a whole bunch of stenciling videos here on YouTube. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I've got a new video out. And yes, I will be playing more with these stencils. Well, thank you so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.